the Chase Thomas Podcast, for people who have nothing but time to kill.
Yeah, it's like I could just see so many of these touchdowns kind of, I could see it all figuring out, but I could see some of it just kind of cannibalizing itself a little bit, where Tennessee just has different options to go to. And I could see a 7-8 touchdown Ethan Davis season, potentially being the second most of any, even 6 or 7 being the second most of any Tennessee pass catcher.
I like it. Schedule spotlight, Ethan Stone. The Florida game. We talked about Florida a little bit here. Do you like where the Florida game ultimately falls this year? It's obviously not in early September when it's baking. It'll be in mid-October. We'll see what the weather's like and what time of day this game's going to fall with not being on CBS anymore. But so do you like where the UF game falls? The biggest plus and minus about moving to mid-October and where it falls in the schedule? And do you think it is a must-win for Tennessee to ultimately make the playoff this season?
I definitely think it's a must-win, and my answer to the other one is probably twofold. From Florida's perspective, they probably like it. I don't, not more, but just considering how their schedule works out, Tennessee being the first team of that just nightmare of a November that they have to face, I guess that's good for them. They're going to be, goodness gracious, my cat is trying to break my door down. Sorry, that totally killed my train of thought.
This is Pro Cat Podcast. Will's cat's great. Cedric, he's always making an appearance. We're a Pro Cat Podcast.
I thought he was coming through the door for a second there, but
you never know what's happening in Heritage, Tennessee. You just never know.
You never know.
Could be a black
Tennessee being that first game for Florida, they won't be as demoralized, I don't think. And for what it's worth, I think Florida's going to be a good football team this year. I'll stand by my take from earlier. They're going to finish 5-7 because their schedule is just so ridiculous. I mean, Miami is one of their out-of-conference teams, and they got to play them at the start of the year. We'll learn a lot about Florida from that game, obviously, as you do with every early year game. But I think for Tennessee, from their perspective, you have to look at it like Tennessee always plays Florida early in the season, and it feels like Florida plays their best game of the year. And then Tennessee plays their best football in the second half of the season, which obviously makes sense. If you're looking at it from the Florida has beaten Tennessee, entirely except for once in the past 20 years, Tennessee being like right here at this point and saying, okay, we can go into, now October and have some stuff under Nico's belt, because obviously he's going to be the catalyst. If he's playing really well, I think Tennessee just steamrolls Florida. It gets to a point where it's like, okay, we've built up enough steam, whereas in the past when we're playing them in September, it still takes a while for Tennessee to be getting out of the station, I guess, if that makes sense. That was a long-winded way to say that, but my point definitely stands. I've held that for a while now.
I'm ruling out blowout for Tennessee. I think the matchup's pretty nice for Florida. I think Graham Mertz, he doesn't throw the ball away. Like you said, he was behind only Bo Nix in completion percentage last year. Tennessee's biggest issue is third and long. Like, they just cannot, the last couple of years, it's been their issue. Like, they're actually okay in third and short. Like, for whatever reason, they're okay when teams try and run the ball short. Like, they've had a top 20 rushing defense over the year. Like, their rushing defense has been great. They've been getting killed, especially in the Florida game 2 years ago at home. Anthony Richardson just never let plays die, on third and long. They just could not get him down. They were getting home a lot. Byron Young and Harrison and company, they just couldn't get him down. And they were obviously in that game. Tennessee should, by all accounts, win that game by double digits. I think the line might be pretty high. It will be an alarming
10 right now.
It's what?
10 right now.
Yeah. And when was the last time Tennessee was favored by double digits against Florida?
I feel like that's about where it was 2 years ago, too.
I think it was single digits. If I remember correctly, I'm pretty certain it was single digits 2 years ago. I could be wrong.
It might have been. It was in that range, I think. But to your point, not much. I do think the 2016 game might have been around, I don't think quite double digits, but north of a touchdown. Tennessee was 11.5-point favorites in 22.
They were?
Yeah.
That makes me a little bit more anxious that they're actually less than what it was in 2022. I don't know, Ryan. Do you agree with Ethan on this, or do you think it's more likely to be absolutely nauseating inside Neyland Stadium for all 60 minutes?
Yeah, no, I expect it to be nauseating. That's completely my expectation. I mean, yeah, the game And I think people kind of forget about it. Like, they remember how bad it got late and how nauseating it got late in 2022. Really, for most of that game, it was that way. I mean, Tennessee opened it up before they collapsed, but I mean, the biggest play, I would still say one of the biggest plays of that entire season was when Omari Thomas punched the ball out down in the red zone in the mid to late third quarter, because those teams were just going back and forth scoring touchdowns every possession. Tennessee, Florida would score to tie the game, Tennessee would score to go up by 7. And it felt like the first team to blink was going to lose, and that fumble on another drive that Florida was just marching right down the field really was that. And then Tennessee's offense, until they tried to, chew clock and 4-minute drill at the end of the day, into the game, didn't really give them any more chances. So yeah, I mean, that's my expectation. I kind of, on where it falls in the schedule, I kind of like it for Tennessee that it's not early in the season for a lot of the reasons Ethan said. And, obviously Fulmer for forever didn't want that game to be when it was played. And, it's a little bit different now that Florida's not, neither program's as good as they were in the 90s and early 2000s. On the other side, though, I think, if you're, well, it's at a good spot for Florida too. Not that it would be any worse in September, but Florida's schedule is pretty manageable until Tennessee. A lot of hard games that could go either way, but to Ethan's point, it doesn't feel like Tennessee is going to get some sort of broken team or team that's given up or coach has already been fired, which when you just list all the teams that they play and you say, all right, this is the date of the game, you say, all right, there's a chance they have three losses at this point. And I don't really think that'll be the case.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, my gut is, and we'll end the schedule part here. Like, right now, it's August 19th. Do you think Tennessee sweeps Florida and Alabama at home?
Yeah, I mean, we did it on our RTI preview podcast. We went through the schedule last week. I think they'll win both those games. I mean, it's, that's what I picked. Are the chances over 50% when you run the numbers of, all right, this is what I think Tennessee's chances to win both those games are? No, but yeah, I mean, I think Tennessee, I picked Tennessee to go 10-2, and I have them running the schedule at home and losing to Georgia and Oklahoma. So, obviously wouldn't be surprised if Tennessee loses one of those games by any means. But yeah, that's my pick.
Man, to be different, I'll go the inverse. I don't know. I think Alabama's still going to be a good team this year. I think at the end of last year when Nick Saban leaves, I mean, my immediate thought was, oh, they're going to be terrible and blah, blah, blah. They've put together a solid team on paper and one that surrounds Jalen Miller really well. I think that complements his game very well. The fact they got to come to Neyland is going to be tough, and I think Tennessee is going to be better than expected this year. I have serious questions about the secondary, as I've said already, but everywhere else, man, they should have dogs just about everywhere. If Nico is even slightly above expectations, you can see it going either way, man. That Alabama game is going to be like, I mean, that's one of the 3 games I think Tennessee could lose this season, because I agree with Ryan that Oklahoma could be really tough. I don't think they're going to have a problem with Florida, my own self. I don't think Florida's going to be broken at that point, but I don't think it's really going to be close. Alabama, obviously, is just a different story based on history, based on rivalry, based on the fact that I think Alabama is going to be better than people think they're going to be at that point in the season. It makes it tough for me to just say, without a doubt, I guess that Tennessee is going to do it. Do I think they can? Absolutely. I mean, I think it's about 50-50. I really do. I don't have a major take one way or another on who I think will win it.
I'm going to be doing that roll tide roll, Alabama, Georgia, because I think they need Bama to win that game at home. I think you feel really good about Bama coming to town if they are riding the Georgia high, giving Georgia their first regular season loss since 2019 against South Carolina at home with Will Muschamp, who's now on staff at Georgia. So, I don't know. My gut tells me like that's the one where I'll circle, where it's like if Bama beats Georgia in September, I feel weirdly better about Bama coming to Knoxville, because I don't think Bama goes 0-2 against Georgia and Tennessee. My gut is I think that seems very unlikely, even going from Saban to DeBoer. So I think if you're a Vol fan, you want Bama to beat Georgia is my gut instinct on that one. I think they split. My gut is they split. But that is okay. Even if you do split Bama and Florida, I think you have to split with Bama being the win and Florida being the win and Bama being the loss. Because I think if you lose to Florida the week before Bama, I think the vibes will be quite bad going into the Alabama game. Like because if they lose to Florida at home, my gut is it's gonna be in excruciating fashion. Like it's gonna be miserable in that kind of loss to get back up off the mat against what should be a top 5, maybe top 10 Alabama team the following week without any time to really recover, a bye or anything. Because that was part of what happened 2 years ago, is the bye situation with Tennessee, and the way the schedule unfolded early on was just electric for Tennessee. You get LSU during the day, you get Florida, and then you get that bye, and right before Bama, you get that spot. Like the schedule was really nice. Like these two are back to back. These are gonna be 2 extremely emotional games for Tennessee, even though they're at home back to back. So I don't know. I think if you beat Florida, then you feel pretty good. You lose to Florida, I don't feel good about Bama at all. Like I think I would probably say they lose both if they lose to Florida. That's my gut. I think the vibes are all time bad if you lose to Florida. Ryan, you were waving something off. What was that? What were you waving off there?
It's just Chase, you went on this whole diatribe like a couple weeks ago about the national media and everybody talking about Tennessee and, oh, it's so positive, but then they go, oh, I think 9-3 is most likely. And you said, I'm standing on the table. I'm saying 10-2.
Yeah.
I'm saying 10-2. Are you still saying 10-2?
I am saying 10-2. I'm saying 10-2.
Get it on the record, because you saying this again is on the record that Tennessee is beating Georgia now. Because you've said
I'm
they're
saying
splitting
10-2.
Arkansas, Oklahoma, and you said they're splitting Alabama, Florida. So
I think they win one of Oklahoma, Georgia, and then I think they split Florida and Alabama. I think that's my gut.
So we're not worried about Arkansas.
No. I don't know what you mean.
I don't have any words to say. So this is how Chase called 10-2 with Tennessee beating Alabama and losing to South Carolina 2 years ago. He just threw out 7 different scenarios for how Tennessee's schedule was going to unfold. And then after the season, he clipped it and said, look at what I said.
Hold on. I ran with it before our official preview. I narrowed it down and I said final prediction was 10-2, lost to South Carolina, and lost to Georgia. I nailed it, 100%.
Yeah.
Next week, I'll put a final tally on which 2 losses it's going to be. But I do think Tennessee's going 10-2, but I'll put it down. Ethan, you'll be a witness. Ryan, you'll be a witness. Jack will be back next week. He'll be a witness.
That's all I need.
Yeah.
Everything else is fine. Everything else is fine. The bouncing around is fine because you're in the content biz. You're talking about Tennessee football a lot. I think that's completely fine as long as we have a firm end of the day prediction for what's going to happen.
Okay, I like it. Final Tennessee football thing, fact or fiction. Ethan Stone, you mentioned the secondary a lot here. I think I know which way you're going to go. Will Brooks and Christian Harrison both exceed Vol fans' expectations this week.
Nicely done, nephew. The Chase Thomas podcast. Hell yeah.